We dream of a place where we treat one another the way that God treats us. A place where we can receive the love, hope, courage, and strength we're all looking for. In a way that we can pass it on to others, starting with our families and going around the world. We dream of a place where mom loves dad and dad loves mom. Now, these words have been putting lightning in our hearts for years. But it is important to remember that they are built on the truth that we are unfinished and that Jesus, by his grace, has promised to work in us and through us.
So before we were married, we had a separation of almost a year. And obviously it wasn't healthy. It was very destructive. We were being selfish, prideful, and all those ugly feelings. But when we came to realize that we wanted to work things out, that's when we were searching for a church, and we wanted to make things different for our family. Back then, we only had one child, so we noticed that it was impacting him, and that was our life before Skyline.
One of the moments that I remember vividly is when we were actually getting married, when Pastor Chris was getting us married, and it was just that emotion that I couldn't hold my tears, and it was God telling me, this is exactly what I created you to be the husband for this woman, and I want you to protect her and look after her and be the husband that she deserves, and that I designed you to be, and that was a moment that I felt that it was my calling to do that. And ever since then, everything has changed a lot. We had so many goals in terms of me being more present at home, me being more present with her as a husband, but also with my kids as a father. And God has just opened up doors and changed so many things in our lives that it's been a lot of change, good change.
Philippians 1:6 says, "He that began a good work in you will perfect it until the day of Jesus Christ." Skyline's unfinished story started in 2002, when a small group of people dared to believe God for something they had never seen or experienced before. Skyline's first public service was at the AMC Theater in Clifton. God began to work, and the dream began to grow.
I would say for my family, they've been very accepting to who we are. Our characters are different, we're very transparent, our family needs are different, and it's been very welcoming. They've accepted our children and love them as who they are, individually different. And they're also building our children's character. So it doesn't stop here. It's a relationship that goes beyond Skyline. And with that, we see our children are just very happy to be here.
What I've seen is with the leaders, right? And personally, I have a son that has special needs. And with him, I've always kind of, watch everybody else make judgments of him and just kind of like guard him in a special kind of way. But when you start seeing that there's these individuals that are accepting of him and who he is.
He fits right in.
You get saying, what's wrong with me? So, and then I started seeing that a little bit different. So I really enjoy that they're accepting to both my children, and understanding that there's a big goal in mind. The view of their spiritual growth is extremely far, and you start accepting people from where they are and loving them at that place. And for me to kind of make that connection with them, whatever's happening, then the relationship that I have with my children becomes more profound as far as developing them with men to be men with character.
Yeah.
So I think that setting that tone and seeing that consistently with the Sky leaders, it starts kind of permeating to our family.
Absolutely.
Skyline continued to believe that God wanted to build a a church based on love and grace in Bloomfield. We'll never forget walking into the door of the chapel, and it was completely unfinished. All I could see is what God could do in that space. And over the last few years, He has.
I can vividly remember being in the Boys and Girls Club, and we were talking about creating a campaign to buy a building. And we had all these vision boards up on the screen, and I remember just praying through like how God was going to provide that, and then hearing the news that God did provide that. It was just an amazing, incredible celebration. So many emotions, gratitude, thankfulness, joy. There was fear just to see like the vision and then how God carried through with the perfect building and the perfect place was an amazing, amazing victory.
We believe God is leading us into another defining moment in the life of Skyline that will mark our impact on our community for years to come. Unfinished is a terrific tool for us to step into the next 20 years. Our primary goal is 100% engagement. We are praying that all of you, 100% of our church family, engage with God. Engage with God about our unfinished surrender, our unfinished faith, and our unfinished generosity. Engaging His grace and His call, about our time and our talent, so that we can increase our impact, so that we can help people build lives transformed by His grace. To help us in responding to God, we are going to focus on 4 major initiatives. The first initiative is a 1-year commitment called Exercising Our Body. And it is 800 hours of ministry a week. We believe God wants to move us from a church where so few do so much to an amazing body of believers that are bringing the love of Christ to our community. This includes staffing all of our ministries. It also includes restarting financial peace, re-engage, and celebrate recovery. Most of all, it means training and caring for our leaders in such a way that they can be effective and making an eternal difference.
Re-engage and financial peace have affected us, and that anytime we have a financial decision to make, we always go back to financial peace and think about the principles we learned there and what God says to do with our money. We also go back to anytime we have an issue in our marriage or disagreement, or anytime that there's a friction, we go back to re-engage and think about the principles that we learned and what God has to say there.
The next 3 initiatives are 2-year commitments. The first is $1.4 million for equipping our body. God has already provided many of the people to broaden our leadership structure. This will resource those people. This will allow us to give part-time salaries to 5 managing directors and 10 directors. This will move us from a church of addition to a church of multiplication, allowing us to take those 800 hours that are given each week and make them effective in accomplishing the vision of loving our community.
I knew there had to be something different. I didn't realize I was broken, and I didn't realize I was searching for something that I was trying to find in something else. And it just felt empty, and I knew that life couldn't keep going this way. There was something missing, so we made that decision to find a church. We found Skyline actually searching online. He's talked to me several times, becoming a life group leader. I didn't want to do it, but he kept bringing those opportunities to me. And I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to take that step and I'm going to do it afraid. So it's those moments where I'm scared to do something, but it's that calling to say it and then the fruit that happens.
$450,000 for eliminating our debt. First of all, we're super grateful that we only have $450,000 on our mortgage. When we pay off this mortgage, it frees up $52,000 a year. Over the next 10 years, that's $520,000 to invest into changing lives. $150,000 to elevate our campus. This will solve our flooding problem by installing proper drainage. We will also install a retaining wall on the back of the property behind the house and be able to flatten that yard. That's going to make a great space for our children to play.
I decided to join the youth worship team. I feel like he really was speaking to me in the sense of telling me, this is what I want you to do. Honestly, it's so much joy and fulfillment. I think just worshiping has got me so much closer to him.
These past 2 years, God has asked me to do a lot of hard things, a lot of things out of my comfort zone. I started being an Awana leader, and I started a life group, and those things are very abnormal for me. I'm not a leader. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, so it's a very uncomfortable position for me, but I've just learned how to surrender to God, and I've seen so many people grow, not because of me, but because of God working through me and we trusting Him daily.
Here's what I believe God is asking all of us to do. That 100% of us engage God in unfinished. Now, often when you hear unfinished, you also hear the numbers, and you're tempted to engage with the numbers. That's not what God is asking us to do. Over the next few weeks, we're called upon to pray, to ask God, what does it look like for you to be first in everything? What does unfinished faith call me to do over the next few weeks? Unfinished calls me to pray and ask God, what does it look like for you to be first in everything? And what does unfinished faith call me to do? What does God's unfinished generosity mean for me and for our church? By celebrating, God often works in us before He works through us. When you see God working in you, when you see God working in somebody else, celebrate it out loud. Share it with your group, share it with our church, and then respond to God so that we can be a light that points the way to God's heart, God's way, and God's dream. As He leads us into launching the next 20 years of the Skyline story. Risk big like never before. Step up. Be radically generous with your time, your talent, and your treasure over the next 2 years. God has been leading us on this unfinished story for 20 years, and we believe this is His next step, inviting all of us to experience His grace for the next 20 years.